Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the M1 iMac and see how this particular Mac holds up in 2024. Now, the thing I will definitely tell you about this particular Mac is that I think it's still a very good device. I think Apple did a really good job with these Macs back in the day. And I would still say for the most part, if you're in the market, these things are very, very good options. And there's just not really too many things to really hate on it. The only thing to keep in mind is that we do have the successor of this Mac already. So we have the M3 iMac. But I will still tell you this particular Mac is still very good. I've loved it since it first came out, and there are also some advantages of buying the M1 iMac over the Intel Macs, even if they are maybe slightly more expensive or if they're slightly bigger. So if you want to pick up any of the Macs that I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there, and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the M1 iMac, on the front of it, you had a 24-inch 4.5K Retina display. Now, this display was actually very, very good. It was a very good panel. And if you remember, Apple also made like 4K displays back in the day, but these ones were significant. This one is a very good panel for what you're getting. And the coolest thing about their all-in-one PCs is that you're getting a display, you're getting speakers, you're getting, the chipset and a computer, all for a pretty decent price. Like this display is actually very, very good for the amount of money that you're paying for. And I think this in and of itself is a very cool thing going on for this particular Mac. And I personally, am the type of person who wants to save money. And if I'm able to go ahead and basically get this Mac at a very good price, then I think it honestly makes sense to go ahead and buy one of these things rather than buying like a Mac and a display that's separate. You might as well just buy the iMac. It just kind of makes a little bit more sense. The only thing I did not like about the M1 iMac or even the M3 iMac is that there's not like a dark colored model. You can really only get these things with like the white bezel around it, which is actually very annoying. I wish they could make one that had like the black bezel around it. That's kind of, I don't know why, like their iMacs from before had black bezels. So for this thing to have white bezels is very weird, especially if you have like dark walls. If you have white walls, it's fine. But all their other Macs have like black bezels. Their MacBooks, their MacBook Airs, their older iMacs, their iMac Pro, like all these ones have dark bezels. For this one to have like this like type of bezel that it has on it, I think is slightly weird, but it's totally okay. Like it's not that big of a deal. It's just a design change. And there might even be skins that you can kind of change around with it too. On the bottom of the display, you were getting this like big bezel, which has been there since like the first, iMacs. But this one does not have the Apple logo. This was one of the first iMacs to remove the Apple logo on the front, which is pretty crazy. And all the computer, the chipsets, the speaker, everything pretty much sits within that bezel. There's some things and components behind the display, but it's a very, very thin Mac. It is so thin, it's like not even funny. And that is kind of the craziest thing going on for this particular device. You would not think this thing is as thin as it is. And man, I will tell you, Apple, it's a feat of engineering that they've done with this particular Mac, in my opinion. So this in and of itself was another very crazy thing going on for this particular device when it came down to it as well. So this thing looks very good in my opinion from that particular perspective. And I do think this in and of itself is another very, very big thing going on for this particular device when it comes down to it. So personally for me, I really like the way this particular device looks like, especially with its camera setup and everything. It looks like a very, very good Mac, and I actually am a pretty big fan of it when it kind of comes down to it. Now, on top of that, you're also getting, like I said before, it's very thin. So there's not like a massive amount of bezel around it. And I do think that in and of itself, once again, is another very big thing going on for this particular device when it comes down to it. On the back side, not really much else going on. And you do have the stand. So the stand is pretty standard. It's kind of funny. It's like no pun intended. It's basically what you'd expect. It's a fairly basic looking type of machine. And, the stand is not really adjustable too much. It basically just goes, kind of like side by side. There's not really like an up and down. You can't change the height unless you get the more expensive stand. But I think this is okay too. It's not really that big of a deal. So that kind of covers it up from the outside. Now, if you remember, there were a few things that Apple did with the M1 chipsets that were kind of annoying. So for one, you could only dock up one display to your MacBook Air, M1 iMacs, all those types of ones, which is very, very annoying. There were some workarounds here and there, but if you wanted to use like two Thunderbolt monitors to your particular MacBook or your Mac Mini or whatever, you couldn't do that with the M1 models. The M1 iMac was really the only way you could actually kind of get like a dual screen experience natively from your particular iMac. So, or really any M series of Mac at the time. Since then it's changed, but that was a very annoying thing that we had to deal with our particular MacBooks. And luckily now we don't have to really deal with it too much because our, M models now kind of support all of them. But this one was really the only way natively to kind of get it done. So when we take a look at the M1 iMac, this one, take it as you will, but was really the only way to go and get both those displays to kind of show up. So that was something I actually liked a lot about the M1 iMac, or this one in particular, because you could actually go ahead and just boot it up, use it as always, and you could actually just go through and just kind of get a pretty good experience from it, just from a display front. So I think this in and of itself was a very, very cool, interesting thing going on for this particular device when it comes down to it. So once again, personally for me, I think it was a very, very important thing that we were able to get this M1 iMac at a pretty decent level just from that particular perspective. And I think that in and of itself was another very big thing going on for this device when it came down to it. Now, when it comes down to the performance side, the M1 iMac is still a very decent and very competitive performing Mac against really most of the other competition. So with the M1 iMac, you're getting still like an 8-core CPU, which is amazing, still a 7-core GPU, which is really good, and you can get up to 16 gigabytes of RAM inside of this particular machine. Now, the thing you have to remember, there's a few things you have to kind of keep in mind. So for one, when it comes down to this particular device, you do have to remember that with the M1 iMacs, these things are not portable. So you're not getting like a portable Mac that you can kind of take with you everywhere. There is an advantage because you can go through and like actually kind of take it maybe a little bit easier with you than like a Mac Pro or something. So you can kind of like probably get a book bag to kind of, get it situated. But beyond that, it's a pretty, it's pretty like once you put it somewhere, it's probably going to be there forever. So that's the one aspect to kind of keep in mind. The other thing is that from a performance side, you're basically getting the same type of performance as like a MacBook Pro M1 model or M1 MacBook Air. So there really wasn't like a performance reason to go up to something like the M1 to the iMac, because you're getting basically the same type of performance. And even from a price per dollar standpoint, although the M1 iMacs were a little bit, they weren't even that much cheaper compared to the other Mac, to the other M1 iMacs, to be honest either. The only cool thing going on for the M1 iMac was that you can get the 4-port model, but if you get the 2-port model, that's going to be a little bit cheaper, and you are going to be saving some money. But again, the performance of these Macs were very good. I've always liked these types of Macs because really whatever I threw at them, they did a really good job. And that was something I actually liked a lot about these types of devices. The thing I had to keep in mind about the M1 iMac was that with this one, it's a very solid machine. If you're a student taking notes, if you're a student who's like trying to edit a bunch of stuff on your computer, if you're a gamer and if you have games, you can play games that are supported on the Macs, you can get a lot of power from these types of Macs still. And especially with these all-in-one PCs, they may not be perfect, but I don't really see where Apple kind of like skimped out. I don't see where they like try to cut corners. They made a pretty good Mac, and you get kind of what you expect, but you're probably going to get a better experience than what you'd expect because Apple did a tremendous job with these Macs at that time. So personally for me, what I would definitely tell you, I think Apple did a really good job with these Macs. And I don't really think these things are like an insanely expensive Mac for what you're paying for. Like, I think this is a very good price for these types of Macs. I just kind of would recommend avoid buying like the 8GB, RAM option. But I think beyond that, Apple did a tremendous job with these Macs. I think they're still worth buying. And I would only say that if you're wanting to get a little bit of a better PC, getting like the M1 Pro or M2 Pro MacBooks, getting one of those models and then docking that up to a display might be a better option. It's more expensive, but you are going to be getting a better Mac. You can always buy the M model Mac Pros or whatever, but like this one is a very good Mac, and I would probably recommend the average person to go and buy it for sure. So that pretty much covers it up here. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.